Hey guys, my name is Jacob Bosarch. I play bass in the Isles Youth Orchestra and the ensemble here. I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about playing scales today. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about scale technique. So when we're practicing scales, we want to practice them well. We want to have good style, tone, posture, and tempo. So starting with style, what I mean by that is what we don't want to do is play our scales super short, super quick, like this. We don't want to do that because then we can't really hear the note, and that defeats the purpose of playing a scale. We want to play with nice, long legato style that we can hear the note come through. We also want to have good tone, so we don't want to have to play way over the fingerboard like this. We don't want to play too down at the bridge like this, but in the middle of your instrument. This goes for more than just bass, violin, viola, and cello as well. Get a nice sound as you're playing those legato notes. Next is posture. We always want to sit up straight when we're playing scales. We don't want to slunch over. We don't want to be sitting on the edge. We don't want to be sitting too back in our chair. We want to be sitting on the edge of our chair. Sit up. If you have your violin, you want to have your violin up, not down to the side, but up, not straight out forward, but to your side. Make sure that you have a good bow position on your violin, up. Make sure we have a good bow hold. And make sure that we're not slunching over again, and just have good posture when we're playing our scales so we can perform our notes more accurately and they can sound a lot better. Lastly, tempo. Take your scales nice and slow so that you can hear the note and you don't go too fast, and then there's no point to play the scale. So do not play it like this. When I did that, I just played through the scale. I didn't learn anything. I couldn't really hear the pitch. But if I play it slow and legato and use all these tips I've said, we'll have nice scales. So when you're practicing scales, you want to practice multiple scales. And to do this, if you've never learned a scale before, you can figure it out using a pattern. So all major scales, which is what I was playing a G major scale in the first position of the bass. All these scales have a pattern. We're going to do, when we say this, we are going either a whole step or a half step. A whole step is going from two spaces on our instrument. So from G to A, from A to B, and then a half step is half of that space, like B to C. So the pattern for the major scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Let me show you what that's like. I've got G, I'm going to go a whole step up to A, a whole step up to B, a half step to C, a whole step to D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, and then a half step to G. And back down, half step to F sharp, whole step to E, whole step to D, whole step to C, half step to B, whole step to A, and a whole step to G. So again, that pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And you can use that for any major scale. So when you're practicing scales, how do you know which scales to practice? So when you're looking through your music and you're practicing that, it's always a good idea to practice the scales, the key that your music is in. So if your music is in C major, it's good to play a C major scale. If it's in D major, it's good to play a D major scale, and so forth. When you're practicing your scales, don't rush through them. Play them as many times as you need for them to sound good and calm so that you know you can play the notes in the piece. Finally, when you're playing scales, make sure to include your arpeggios. Now the arpeggio is going to be the 1, or the first note of the scale, the 3rd note of the scale, the 5th note of the scale, and then the 1st note of the scale again, an octave up. So always make sure you include your arpeggios when you're playing scales. So I'm going to play a few scales for you, and then I'll leave you with that. I'm going to be using good style by making my bow long. I'm going to have a nice tone by staying in the middle of my bridge and putting an adequate amount of bow pressure. I'm going to have good posture by sitting up straight, having a good bow hold, and keeping my hand up on the instrument, sitting on the edge of my chair. I'm going to take a good, nice and slow tempo. I am going to play for you a few scales. Here we go. That was a G major 2-octave scale with arpeggio, and now I'm going to play an F major scale. So I hope you learned 1 or 2 things today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Stay safe and happy practicing.